Hello, Flynn's family. Welcome one more time. Here we are today with Margaret. She's bringing us tea, which is great. I love tea. And I love the idea of business that you have. Actually, you started with something very peculiar, like the word hack. So we're going to talk about that. Also, I would like to say that she came with the idea that has, some of the tea flavors are related to Florida. That's why also she was invited because we would like to promote, as you know, entrepreneurs from all South Florida or from the United States in general. And therefore, I thought you were American. You're not American. So I also would like to know about your story. So, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Tell me how everything started. Like this idea of having tea in Florida. It's for some people, maybe Latinos will think it's kind of crazy, but I think it's a great idea as
It's a
well.
little crazy, yeah. So I was born in Poland. I was 10 years old when I moved to Florida. And I had a lot of isolating experiences in my life. So coming to a new country, not speaking the language. I lost my mom a year and a half after I moved here. So it was just very isolating. I felt alone in my journey, and so what I decided to do as an adult later in life was to create a brand that gave comfort and connection to people like the way tea did for me. So tea was that one constant for me, my one companion. So no matter what I went through in life, it was always there. And it was always something I returned to. And I wanted to create a brand around that so that people can have something to enjoy and something to look forward to no matter what they're going through. So if it's a bad day, you can have a cup of tea and automatically feel better. If you're celebrating a birthday, a wedding, I had tea at my wedding.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create a story, a meaningful way to connect with people the way that it was for me.
That's something that I think a lot of people will appreciate, that the connection you have. Well, I was not raised with tea, I was more into the coffee world. But I understand what you're saying, like the whole idea of something that is there for you your entire life, it's a companion, but also it's a motivation, right? So for you, what was the most satisfying around these experiences of just create the brand and this first step? Because sometimes I feel for some people, for most people, the most difficult step is the first one.
It was very difficult. So I started the idea 3 years ago, and it took me 3 years to launch. And I was working as a paralegal, and I didn't think I would ever quit. It was just part of my life. I always wanted to be in the legal field, and I just kept working and slowly working on the company at the same time. But because the job was so demanding and I worked many hours and it was so stressful, I didn't really focus a lot on the tea aspect or on the business. It was just me working constantly. And finally, I started to develop a lot of health issues from the stress at work. And my body was just telling me to stop. You need to stop. You need to just do something else. So I finally decided, okay, I'm going to quit my job and I will focus on the tea. But the journey was not easy because letting go of what you're familiar with.
Let's say legal is something that I have to say, I think attorneys or generally all the people who work in this kind of business get really good money.
And it was a lot of stress. So, and I was very loyal to my boss, and I just thought I would be there forever. So the hardest part was stepping out of my comfort zone and saying, okay, I've had enough. My body's telling me that's enough. So I think that was the most difficult, and the most rewarding part after the fact was, I don't have to work for anybody else. I have the flexibility to work for myself. And I worked a lot of hours. I complained about the amount of hours I worked, but now I probably work more hours. But the idea is that now you do it for yourself and you don't have to answer to anybody else, and how much time you put in just comes back to you in your business. So I think that was the most rewarding part of becoming an entrepreneur. And I had zero experience. I had no business experience, no knowledge. No one in my family went to college, not a single person. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. So I had no groundwork whatsoever.
Okay, so for me, there's something that I find similarities in culture. Like, for example, when you are the first generation that goes to college, and generally it's like family, everybody's excited, everybody's like pushing with you to see that diploma and everything. So when you decide to make this change, did you feel that somebody in your family was like, no, don't do it? Or they said, no, we trust you? Because sometimes I also see a lot of fear when people get to college, especially being first generation. But, well, in Peru, I have been a teacher for actually first generation kids at college. But when you realize why those kids know so much, is because the parents were generally entrepreneurs first.
Wow.
So, and why? Because I told this to the directors of the university. Those kids know what they know. Sorry, not because of just the knowledge, because you can compare other colleges and whatever. It's because they already know the market, because they born in those kiosks. They born with their parents in their family business. So if they wanna quit tomorrow and do it by themselves, I know they are also going to be ready for that. So how was that journey for you?
With the college or with the business?
With family involving in this process.
Okay. Yeah, so I told my dad that I was starting the business, and he didn't understand. He just kind of just said, okay. But he didn't push me in any way. He wasn't excited either, because he just didn't understand. He had no concept of what an entrepreneur does. Culturally, in Poland, everyone just always works for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a hard worker, you put your hours in, you do your job, you go home, and that's it. That's how he was raised, that's how I was raised. So he didn't understand what I was doing. He had no idea. Just like even with college, he didn't know how to apply to college. He didn't know you needed to submit applications by a certain time. I had to figure it out. So same thing with this. I had to figure it all out, one step at a time. I had nothing to help me, no one to help me as far as family, and no one to push me one way or the other. But I definitely didn't tell my friends about it, because I didn't want that weighing on me. So I said, you know what? I will figure this out on my own, because I've always been very independent given my isolating experiences. I said, I will figure this out, and when I have something to show, then I will tell everybody. And that's what happened. The day I launched is when I announced, and none of my friends knew.
And how was that experience?
It was a little crazy. People were like, wait, what? You've been doing this and you didn't tell us? We just talked about tea last month. How do you not tell me you started a tea company? So it was something I wanted to do on my own. I felt that it was very important to me to create it myself, and it was mine. And I didn't want input from anybody else. I didn't want opinions. I didn't want judgment. Because tea is not, it's not this crazy money-making, So you would get judged so easily, but no matter who, friends, family. So I just didn't want that. I didn't want the judgment. I didn't want the opinions. I wanted to create something and say, look, now I did it. I did it on my own. I figured it out. Here it is. Here's my company.
And also, when it comes to the idea of tea, like sharing with friends, that being part of your culture as well, what was your opinion after your first shots here in Florida? Like your first events, how people reacted?
So Florida is not necessarily a tea drinking community, right? It's really hot here.
Yeah.
And especially South Florida. There's a lot of influence from South America, Central America. So there's definitely a lot of coffee drinkers. But the more events I do, I think the more people are willing to understand the product and listen to me and see that tea doesn't have to just happen when you're sick, when your throat hurts, or when you have a cold. Tea is meant to be enjoyed. So now I'm starting to influence people, and they understand now, okay, I get it. I get what you're saying. There's not necessarily a function with these teas. It's more of just, how does it make me feel in that moment? How can I connect? How can I slow down? How can I feel better in just sitting here and having a warm cup of tea, not because my throat hurts or not because I have a headache or, so I think at first it was very difficult, but now I'm starting to see the same people at my events. I'm starting to have repeat clients, and they understand the meaning behind it all. So like I said before, I just want people to have that comfort and connection, right, with tea and that companion that I had my whole life, no matter what they're going through. So that's really what it's all about. And I created two separate collections. One is for life moments. One is for all of life's moments. So my slogan is tea for all of life's moments. One of the collections is Life Moments Collection, meant to be for every occasion or every moment in life, because I wanted people to think of tea more in like moments terms and celebratory, or if you just need a little perk up in the day, or energy, or you just want to feel better in that moment. So if you want to celebrate a birthday, a wedding, anniversary, I have an anniversary blend. I have You Got This blend. So now people are seeing that my blends are more meaningful. I'm getting customers buying them as gifts for friends or family members who have cancer, and they buy my Optimism blend, or You Got This blend, or my Chamomile Compassion blend. So every blend has a story, and every blend has a meaning to it. So I think now people are starting to realize there's more to it than just tea when you're sick.
Exactly, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And on this journey as well, I have seen that you create, for example, Ocean Breeze, you create Key Lime Pie.
Yeah.
How do you come with all these names, or what's the idea behind those names?
So Tea for All of Life's Moments was initially how it started with the Life Moments collection, but we're in Florida, so I created a whole Florida collection with different Florida names to kind of cater to the locals, right? And maybe tourists who want to give gifts to people from different states, up north, wherever. Something they can bring back from here and have a piece of Florida.
Without aduanas or somebody in Interpol looking your luggage, it's true. Because it happens as the opposite to me when I came to migrations with my Andean verbs that are legal. My teas are legal. I go to the migrations, I always say, yeah, and I have teas, and they look at me, sir, I know the rules.
You know all the rules, yeah.
But I always have to explain, and I always have to go through x-rays and everything. But I guess, well, in your case, of course, you're producing here, so there's no problem.
Yeah, exactly. And I just wanted I love Florida. It was meant for me to live here. I didn't know this is where I would live, obviously, as a kid. And I moved away for about a year after college and lived in Chicago, and immediately came back. And if Florida is just, I don't know, it's very special to me. It's where my mom wanted to live her whole life, and she didn't get to do that. So I'm kind of living out her dream, and it's just a very special place. I love it so much.
That's something, for example, when I met you and I saw all this bunch of different teas, I thought, oh, she's very Floridian. She must love Florida.
I love Florida. I have no problem saying that. There are so many people who come here and move here, and they always complain about, oh, well, in New York we do this. Up north we do this. In Chicago we do this. And to me it's like, okay, well, go live up north if you're, I love it here so much. It's paradise. It truly is paradise. We have access to so many different opportunities and things and places, and I just love it. So I did create this Florida collection because it's part of who I am, it's my home. And I also wanted to give a little bit of my home to other people, right? That they can take with them wherever they live. Florida has a lot of tourism, right? So if I go to a market and there's a tourist, I want someone to be able to buy something from here and bring it back.
What do you think are your challenges for your next steps about the brand? Because now you go to events, as you said, you also have your private clients who now are a constant also part of the project. But what are your next steps, and what are like the most challenging parts that you're finding in this way? Because I feel like entrepreneurs, what we have is always we try for more, doesn't matter what, we go for it, and we keep trying and keep trying. It never ends.
It's definitely a vicious cycle for sure. I want to grow organically, right? Of course, growth is the ultimate goal for everyone, but I don't want to be too big. I'm all about community. I'm all about talking to the people here and meeting people locally. Yes, I could sell on Amazon. I have one tea on Amazon, by the way, if anyone wants to buy it. It's this one right here. I could. I could sell across, the world, nation, but I don't know. I want to connect. I want to connect with the local people. So it's very difficult because you can only do so many markets. You only have so many hours in the day to do these events. Most are on the weekend, so your weekends are shot. So that's definitely a big challenge. So I have to think about how I want to grow, but I want to grow organically. I don't want it to be, like a huge, massive step. I want to take small steps and grow in a way that's meaningful to me, right? Because I do love Florida and I want it to be local. I don't need. Yeah, I could make a lot of money selling on Amazon.
I have to say, I think the level of consumption here in the United States, just to have one state of 50, you get meter. It's not like, maybe, I don't know if it happens the same in Poland, what it happens in my country or other countries that are smaller. Sometimes the market for just one city or one department or one, what some people will say state or province, is not enough. You need basically the whole country, and sometimes even something more than that, because of the level of people, the consumers are not that high. But here in the United States, I think that's why also some people call it the land of opportunities, is because you get one state of 50, and maybe that's all that you need, and maybe that's all that you want.
The population of Florida is essentially the same as the population of Poland. So, it's like having a whole country. And I don't know, I just want to be local. I want to change the tea industry, right? People always ask me at events, what are your teas good for? Do you have anything for digestion? Do you have anything for sleep? And I'm trying to change that. Because, yes, you can have all those teas. I don't have them, but I want people to drink tea because they enjoy tea. And it comforts them in that way rather than, oh, I'm sick. So I'd rather start locally and trying to and convince people here that you don't have to be sick to enjoy tea. At the same time, Florida is probably the worst place to do it because it's so hot, so many coffee drinkers, and now the new craze with matcha lattes. Like, it's so hard to convince people. But I don't like matcha. I don't sell matcha, so sorry guys. If anyone likes matcha, I don't have matcha. I don't like it.
I'm not a big fan. I tried it once and that was it for me.
I don't like it. I can have it if it's in a tea bag form mixed with green tea, but if you put it in the powder and put milk or anything to it, I can't do it. I just can't. So, yeah, sorry any matcha drinkers out there. But yeah, so it is a challenge here in Florida, but it's what I'm passionate about, and I will keep doing it as long as I have to. And, burnout is real. Within the first 3 months, I was already starting to get burnt out because I was doing as much as I can because I thought that's what you do, right? You hustle.
Yeah, you are everything.
You are everything. Yeah, you have to hustle. Otherwise, you can't get off the ground. So I did that for the first 3 months, and it was brutal. And luckily, I was able to take a break because of travel, not for personal, but for business. And it kind of gave me that, broke up that momentum for me and gave me that break I needed. And I took a step back and I said, okay, now I will focus more on strategic way of doing things rather than just spreading myself thin and doing everything at once. Because I didn't know what market worked. I still don't know which market works for me. So I was doing as many as I could, signing up for every single one just to see which one works. Because what may work for you may not work for me.
Exactly.
Someone telling me they sell soap and they do very well at a market, that doesn't help me. You know, maybe it works for you. And it's happened so many times. I've had a lot of people say, oh, you should do this market. I do so well there. And then I do it, and it's my worst market.
Yeah.
So I kind of slowed down a little bit with the markets because it was very time-consuming and overwhelming, and I was doing too much at once. So, and I was at first just trying to push my product, whereas now I'm really focused on how can I connect with people and where's my audience? Who are the people who are willing to buy this tea because it brings them comfort and joy and they want to celebrate with it, and rather than just me trying to buy and sell as many teas as I can.
And have you discovered any like a special community? Like, for example, as you say, Latinos, we have a story with coffee. I drink coffee since I was 3 years old. So we grow with that. And for me, my taste is always for those kind of flavors, you know. Or maybe if I go for a tea, I go more for a citrus or hibiscus, you know, that kind of teas. Especially because I also, well, as I told you, when I was raised in the 90s, we had the hyperinflation as well. So basically I just knew one kind of tea my whole life.
Yeah.
Because that's what you could get.
That's all you could get, yeah.
And chamomile. And chamomile generally was when you had fever, when you had your stomach ache. So those were until I became an adult and traveled to other countries. And then you discover that there were a bunch of different teas in the world.
Growing up, we had one brand of tea. They weren't even brands. I don't even think they were brands. It was just one tea. You go to the store, there was one tea, and you can buy one black tea, and that's it.
Oh, and green tea when you are a teenager, so you lose weight.
Oh, yeah.
That's the basics.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, what was your question?
Like, so if you discover any special community, or like, for example, what Polish people like the most, or what Latinos like the most?
So from not really, I haven't really seen too many patterns. It's been kind of all over the place, but yeah, South Americans definitely like mate because a lot of Argentinians and Chile,
Uruguay and Brazil.
Brazil, yeah, there's they really like their mate. So I have one tea with mate, with green mate, not yerba mate, but yeah, so they like their mate. A lot of, you know, Jamaicans will like hibiscus because that's a big thing there. They also are used to growing their own herbs in their backyard, so that's what they grew up on. They didn't necessarily grow up on black tea. They're more into herbal teas because that's what they grew up on. So I'm still kind of figuring out what people like. Europeans, of course, like fruity teas or black teas. It just really depends on their upbringing, I think. But like Polish people always grew up with black tea and lemon, honey and lemon. That was a big staple. But then, you know, the UK, you have black tea with sugar and milk, and it's the most disgusting. Sorry, anyone from England or anywhere in the UK. It's like the most bitter, disgusting tea you can drink.
I have tried that. When I just was studying English, there was a part for British English, like six months or so, and we start trying to, you know, generally what they teach you is try something from the cultures, or you get, you know. And I have to say, I was 50-50 because I tried it the first time, I love it, then I think I tried it with a different tea and I hated it.
Yeah, so. The tea is not the highest quality, and it's also very bitter because they have to make it so strong to go well with the milk and sugar. So it's not going to be a high quality rare tea that you should be able to drink on your own. So every culture has their own thing, but I feel like in South Florida it's such a mix of cultures that people are learning different things and trying different things. It's hard to pinpoint a specific you know, tea that someone likes just because they're from Peru or Cuba or wherever, just because it's a melting pot in South Florida. Yes. You know what I mean? We're such a mix here.
You know, I know people keep saying that in my country, that Peruvians have come in the last years a lot, and I haven't seen many Peruvians.
You know what?
I'm lost.
Yeah, I have not seen a lot of Peruvians either. I hear a lot of Argentinians and Chile, but yeah, it's strange. Not a lot.
Argentina's my second house.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you don't drink mate?
Yes and no. When I was living in Argentina or even in Peru, and then I dated an Uruguayan, yes, especially in Uruguay, I drink a lot of mate because in Uruguay it's a tradition of every afternoon, seriously. People seriously go to the park every afternoon and or the tea time is drink mate.
Oh, wow.
So more than in Argentina, I live in the city. So people like any other city, if they have time, they do it. If they don't, they can't. Simple as that. But yeah, I learned. At the beginning, I didn't like it. Then, if you are there, you do what Romans do, and after a week or two, you
get used to it, and that becomes part of your life.
Yeah. But I mean, if I knew here, because I even took mate to Peru several times, if I knew any place here to have a good mate or in a good price, I have to say sometimes Latinos really rip you off with prices, I would take a chance again. I like it.
Yeah.
Again, as the same as drinking tea, I didn't grow with many ideas of flavors, but when I get something I like, I go for it.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I didn't grow up with a lot of flavors when I was much younger because, like I said, there were only two brand. One thing of black tea and then maybe a fruity one, and that's it. But I did grow up on certain fruits, so that influenced a lot of what I put into my teas. Rose hips were huge in Poland. Not so much hibiscus, but rose hips. So there are a lot of teas that have rose hips in. I also try to source some of my ingredients from Poland, so like sunflower petals or some of my dried apples that I put into the teas are sourced from Poland, just because I feel like I needed to have some connection to Poland. And I didn't talk about this, but my design for the Life Moments collection, not to get off topic, but the design for my Life Moments collection, which is just the roses, they're loosely based on Polish folk art roses.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the Florida one. Yeah, the roses are loosely based on Polish folk art roses. So one day I learned about this little tiny village in Poland. Yeah, that was the Florida one. One day I learned about a tiny village in Poland that had beautiful flower paintings on all of their houses and buildings. Not buildings, really, just their houses, their fences, their barns. And what happened is back at the end of, I believe it was the 19th century, they used to use wooden stoves in the house, so there were no chimneys. So the stoves would create these black marks on the walls. So the women in these houses decided to make the house pretty, and they would paint beautiful, colorful flowers over these black spots on the walls, outside and inside. And it kind of, over time, became a symbol of resilience, and that story really stuck with me.
Yeah, nice.
And I wanted to kind of, even though this is a very meaningful collection by itself, I wanted to create something that also had some home to it, some part of my original home, right? So that story really stuck with me, and I decided to use some of the roses loosely based on some of the roses that were painted on these buildings on my design.
There's something very interesting because you moved when you were a kid, but still you feel like very attached to your roots.
I do, yeah. I didn't when I was younger. I wanted to assimilate as fast as I could when I got here, right? Because I was an outsider. I wanted to fit in. But as you grow older and as you become an adult, you realize how important it is to go back to your roots, and how important it is to appreciate where you come from. Mm-hmm. As a kid, you have no idea. You don't understand that. So when I first moved here, I wanted to speak in English. I wanted to be an American. I wanted to, not even think about Poland. And my dad sort of forced me to read in Polish and write in Polish and speak to him in Polish. Now, none of us knew English when we moved here, but instantly I learned because I was a kid. And he made me speak in Polish all the time. And I appreciate that so much now, because now I love where I come from. After I learned a lot about the history of Poland, it really has a lot of meaning in my life. And I try to do little things here and there to kind of connect that to my current life here.
And I think this is part of why also I feel like your brand has so many symbols, and sometimes people in general do not realize, like they see it and they might interpret a connection. But if you really think about it, as you said, you have the colors, you have the blends of the different types of flowers or plants from Florida to Poland, the word hack in your logo, the shapes even of how you design this these plants, these logos, and that they connect with the different colors. Everything has a message.
Everything, yeah.
So you were the one who was all the time behind those designs, right?
Yeah, I did my own designs. I didn't start. I thought I would have a designer, but it didn't work out that way. So I had an idea of what I wanted, but it took so much time for me to even get a designer to understand what I wanted. And even when I wanted to change a little thing here and there, it was so much back and forth with so many days in between for a little change that ultimately I, thanks to my husband, decided, okay, it's time for me to just jump in and learn how to design it myself. And that's what I did. And I'm glad I did, because I poured my heart and soul into it. Every detail matters. I mean, no one can notice, but, every little dot I added, every little flower, it's all, I'm very detail-oriented, and that's who I am, and that's part of my branding, and I stand by it. And so many people don't understand when they buy my tea how much went into the design process and the blending process and creating the names and creating the ingredients in a certain way. So I definitely spent a good amount of time on it, and yeah, it's hard for anyone else. It's hard to see,
But you know what? Why I think maybe the designer didn't connect with the idea, because sometimes I do feel that in this world that we live nowadays, people is just doing their jobs, first of all. Second of all, that unfortunately, because we have so much information, especially if people is, sorry for this, but if people is kind of young, they have so much information that they don't analyze it very deep. So, because this is something I also found, because when the first time I work here, I work with younger people than me. And I see that these people is mixed as well, like American Latin or American whatever. And they don't even realize they have both sides of the world.
Yeah.
They have it in themselves, but they don't realize they have it, so they can express it properly to other people. And maybe now that you're an adult, you realize that you have both sides and you're proud of also your Polish side.
Yeah, I'm very proud of it, but I wasn't before.
Yeah. And you communicate it, but maybe the other person doesn't understand, because he just sees one world, that in this case is US. But also, because I'm not criticizing your job, I'm actually criticizing the designer. I feel sometimes, because that happens in communication a lot, that they receive, but they have the idea of what they have, and it's not actually your world, what should be in any entrepreneur's idea, actually a mix of their own world with what they want to expose to their markets, and it's a risk, because you're always, not all the time you're going to be 100% right, but it's a risk you must take if you really want to have a unique brand, and I think you are in the correct path with that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think doing it myself was the best decision, because if I had someone do it, it wouldn't have been me. It wouldn't have been who I am, and it wouldn't have been so meaningful. And now that I did it myself, I'm very proud of it, and I'm glad I went through that painful, terrible process of learning how to design. I didn't even know how to open a document in Adobe Illustrator. I really didn't. I didn't know what to do. But here I am. I learned, I figured it out, and of course there's mistakes on some packages, but no one's gonna notice that. So Yeah, it's all me, and I'm proud of it, and I'm very glad that it worked out the way that it did, and that designers weren't really the easiest. I mean, if it's a quick job and no one cares, and no one puts the meaning and thought and detail into a product, then it's different, you know? If you're just trying to push a product that has no meaning to you and you're just trying to make money, of course a designer is going to be the best option. But if you build your own brand from the ground up and you want it to have meaning, doing everything yourself in the beginning makes the most sense, I think.
And also part of the process that you're having right now is creating your own flavors. So how, I won't say give me the recipe or expose the recipe, but how do you do it? Or how do you decide, hey, I want to do something particular that nobody else have?
It's hard. It's very hard. So I think right now what I'm doing is what tastes good to me and not so much what other people would like. Because if I try to cater, I'm not going to be able to, I can't be successful that way. There's so many different flavors. There's so many people. So I started out with what is good to me and what I enjoy and what I like. And then I can kind of test it out in the market and see, okay, is this something people go for? And I've had no problems so far. Pretty much every blend that I've tested at markets and every blend that I create, people have loved. So I just want it to taste good. And it takes a lot of experience. It takes a lot of teas I don't like, tasting a lot and learning the different processes behind the teas, where the teas come from, how they're made, how they're processed, and the different flavors that are available. So it's a lot of work. But now that I have it all somewhat figured out, I just go along with what tastes good to me.
Do you have any guinea pigs at home, like your husband, or hey, try this?
Yeah, he does try some, but he's not the biggest tea drinker. I'm converting him. Don't worry, anyone with a husband, they can be converted, I promise you. Or a boyfriend or girlfriend or anybody, they could be converted. I converted my husband. He was not a tea drinker, and now he asks for tea every day. It's really sweet.
Is he American?
Yeah, he's American. He did not grow up on tea. Tea wasn't part of his world. It was always my world, but until I started the company, he really didn't even drink tea. So yeah, I have him taste things, but he doesn't really understand. So it's hard for him to be, you know, like a judge in my teas. So I kind of just do it myself. But it's a lot of work. It really is. It's a lot. Just, you know, deciding between where to source a particular ingredient from, or do I want air dried apples, or do I want freeze dried apples? I mean, there's so many variables. It takes a lot. And although I'm not a professional flavorist, like there are some professional flavorists, I do have the experience just from doing it myself for so long that I can, you know, make those decisions based on my own palate and come up with something. And it's all been so great so far, so.
And how long takes you to create a new tea, more or less?
Months. Absolutely. It takes me months. I go through tastings, lots of tastings. And some days I want to taste tea, but I'm not in the mood for it. So then I have to keep tasting it multiple times. Then I think I have the ratios correctly, and then I taste it again with my ratio, and it doesn't taste the way I want it to taste. So it's months of work. I have a couple blends I'm still working on, and it's been 5 months. I haven't figured it out yet. So it just depends on, you know, on the particular blend. Some are easier than others, and if you want a very particular flavor or a ratio, it's a little bit harder.
It's interesting how it can something so simple, because you see tea and you see at the end the verbs and everything. It actually takes a lot of knowledge.
It really does. It really takes a lot of knowledge, and I don't even have all the knowledge. I'm still learning. I just have the experience of tasting tea, right? And I am learning. But there are people, I'm not considered an expert. I could be considered a professional, but not an expert. I mean, the people growing the teas, those are masters. Those regions where the tea is grown, they're ones picking the leaves and processing the leaves. Those are tea masters. They can tell you a lot more about tea than I can.
Well, at the same time, it takes a lot of process and a lot of thinking to go through every single recipe because I do believe when you create something new out of nowhere or where you are trying to get to that path, it's a lot of, as you said, knowledge, information, education, but also a lot of, again, the word risk comes to my mind because one thing is what you believe and the other thing is what people or the market will accept. But as you said, I think because you studied so much before launching it, is what makes it at the end successful. Because if it were just an idea of 1 or 2 days and hey, mix this with that and just launch it, it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, people won't see at the end the whole process behind. But I think when they taste it, that's what they, because that's what happens with me and my husband. We're like, hey, this is different. we're not the experts, but you know when you try something that you never tasted before in your life.
Yeah.
And have ever something like this ever happened to you before? Like people say, hey, this is totally new. I like the flavor. It's something it never came to my mind.
Yeah, I get that a lot actually. And I wasn't trying to be different. I was just working with teas and ingredients that tasted good to me and a lot what I grew up on. Some wasn't. But yeah, people haven't been exposed to those flavors mostly. You know, just my QS key lime pie tea, right? That's not really something people are exposed to in a tea. You hear of key lime flavored everything else in the world you can think of, but not tea. Same thing with, for example, my wedding cake. It's very unusual to see white chocolate pieces in a tea. It's just people, you don't see that, and people don't comprehend that. So it's very new to them because it's just not typical. It's not something they're used to. You know, they're used to like chamomile. Yeah. Chamomile is like number one. Chamomile, black tea, straight green tea, straight black tea, chamomile, maybe like a ginger turmeric tea, and that's it. Everything out, or maybe a hibiscus. Everything outside of that is new and different. So I do get that.
Ginger.
Oh, really? I'm not a big fan of it. I do not have a turmeric ginger tea, but I am working on one. Everyone's been asking me for one. Probably not turmeric, but maybe like a lemon ginger.
Oh, nice.
Everyone's been asking me for a ginger tea, and I just said, I'm sorry, I just don't like ginger.
We have a sneak peek right here.
I'm very picky. I am very picky, too. So I don't have a lot of herbal teas because I'm a big black tea drinker, but people have been asking me for herbal teas, more herbal teas. There are a lot of people who don't want caffeine, so now I will work on a lot more herbal teas. But I started with what I liked. And then I decided, okay, let's go to see how it works and what people like. And so now that I have a better idea of what people are looking for, I can add on to that.
Where can we find your products? I mean, online with you?
Yeah, so I have an online website, hugginamugtea.com. I have Instagram, obviously. Everything's hugginamugtea. I'm slowly getting into Amazon. I do have the one tea. This tea is actually on Amazon right now. Optimism, but I'm just testing out one tea to see how it goes on Amazon, just to see. If it does well, I'll add more, but primarily I do the markets. So every weekend I'm at a different market, and if you're listening, I'm actually doing the Florida SuperCon. I'll be a vendor there, and I'm very excited because I think I will have a specialty just for that event.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm working with a Japanese tea supplier who actually already has a blended tea. I don't have to do it myself, that I may use. They don't actually blend teas typically. They usually just they're growers, so they have pure teas from Japan. But this particular one uses sakura cherry blossoms.
Ooh, I like
and it's
that.
a black tea. It's a Japanese black tea, which is very unusual. Typically, as everyone may know, Japan is known for their green tea. It's not a black tea region. But I may have this tea. I'm really thinking about it and trying to figure out the design for my package. I may have maybe 40 bags available at the Florida SuperCon. So if you're going to be there, come step by and visit me there. But yeah, typically it's just markets. That's what I do, and I have a website. People can order on the website as well. But most of my sales do come from the local markets.
Nice. Any final words you want to share with the people that is watching us?
Yeah, so maybe a little bit about entrepreneurship. I would say if you're thinking about doing something, and as scary as it may seem, even if you have to take small steps, don't be afraid and just do it. Just go for it. Honestly, it took me 3 years to launch. That's not an easy road, but I am so glad I did it and that I'm finally here. So even if you do one little thing a month, one little step at a time, that's all that matters. Just go for it and do it.
Thank you so much. And one final thing is your social media, please.
Oh, yeah, it's Hug in a Mug Tea on Instagram. And Facebook is the same. Hug in a Mug Tea everywhere. Website, Instagram, Facebook. I'm not on TikTok, sorry.
It's fine.
But if you know of anyone who's on TikTok and wants to post about my tea, I'll happily take it. But yeah, I'm not on TikTok. Sorry, TikTokers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was so much fun. Thank you.
Everybody who was watching us.
Bye.